Well, hello everyone. Today I wanted to share with you the scariest books that I've ever read. I really love to be scared. It's a strange thing. I watch horror movies. I know you feel like you are in either camp and you're not in the middle. You either can handle scary things or you can't and need something more cozy. And that's fine. That's fine. This is for all of the people who truly want to be scared because these books genuinely did terrify me in one way or another. We're going to begin with Come Closer by Sarah Gran. This is the story of a woman who wakes up one day and starts noticing little things happening in her apartment that seem like she could explain them away, like little tapping noises through the night. And she's like, well, that's weird. Could be a pipe. And things just escalate. She starts to all of a sudden like hear another voice in her head. We all have that voice in our head that tells us, what to do and how we should be feeling about certain things. Sometimes it's just a very negative voice. Anyway, she has another one. She has that voice as well as another one. And it becomes very clear that she is being possessed. And it's disturbing on every level. And I think it's most disturbing because of how it begins with all of these very subtle things that I genuinely would probably not blink an eye to. And then it just escalates from there. And the idea of me not knowing that I'm being possessed, oh my God. Oh no. And next up, we've got Blood Wedding by Pierre Lemaitre. This follows a nanny. She is taking care of a young boy, and she's also dealing with things in her life where she feels like she's having some memory loss. Like she thinks she parked her car on one street. It happens to be 2 streets over. Lots of little things like that happen. And then suddenly she takes a nap one day while her this kid is taking a nap, and she wakes up and he is murdered. And it looks like maybe she murdered him. And she runs away. And you follow her running away, trying to change her identity, all of that. And that in itself is very nerve-wracking. But there is a twist in the middle of the book. And I remember when I got to the twist in the middle of the book, I just suddenly got chills and had to stop for a second reading. It changed everything, and I was officially creeped the hell out. You may have to wait for the middle of the book. It is worth it, okay? It's worth it. Next up is a book that I don't think a lot of people would put on this list, but I absolutely do because it feels so close to reality. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is a dystopian book about a dystopian future in which women, specifically in the US, have absolutely no rights. And some of the women who are still fertile, because in this dystopian setting, women are becoming less and less fertile. So the women that are fertile are put into essentially sex slavery, and they're forced to give birth to children that they'll give away to wealthy families, and then they'll get pregnant again, and it's just this cyclical thing that they're stuck in. And you follow one of the handmaids who is in this position, but you follow her from the beginning, which is the best part. You follow her when at the very start she's living a normal life, and then suddenly her credit card stops working, and suddenly she is being pulled into this life, this horrific life. And if you look at everything that has gone on in, well, specifically US politics, but Lord knows it creeps up to Canada, Lord knows. When you look at these things, you see people's rights being taken away from them, and it's you know, as Margaret Atwood says, every single thing that she put into this book has happened to women in history at some time. And Lord knows it's happening again. So to me, that is a terrifying book. And just the feeling like you can't get out, that you had lived a normal life and now suddenly you're in this just bizarre alternative universe and you can't get out and you just want to go back. No, thank you. Another very claustrophobic book that made me feel very uncomfortable was Beneath the Skin. This is very scary. It is a thriller. This isn't horror, but it's nonetheless very terrifying. This follows 3 women and they have nothing in common. Absolutely nothing. Like vastly different women. The only thing that they do have in common with one another is that they're getting letters from somebody who, well, they say nice things sometimes at the beginning of the letters, and then at the end of the letter, it becomes very clear that the person who's written this letter wants to kill them. He or she is enjoying watching them become more and more terrified as they get the letters. So, I mean, they do the right thing. They go to the police, but there's only so much police can do. And not every policeman is really great at their job. It is terrifying, the idea of someone watching you and stalking you and intending to end your life. I felt like I was looking over my shoulder reading this book. It is set in the summer, I think a very hot summer. So it's a great summer read, but like if you, I mean, read it now. I would not wait. It's so well done. Oh, so good. Okay, we're going into straight up like 100% horror here. Okay, are you ready? Yes. The Haunting of Ashburn House. This was my first Darcy Coates. I haven't read a Darcy Coates since then that has terrified me as much as this, because this follows a girl who is really out of luck when it comes to money. She has no more money, and yet she's very lucky because I think a great aunt has given her Ashburn House. The great aunt has passed away. She is going to inherit this house, which is far away from where she lives, but she doesn't have much of a choice. So she takes her, beat up old car, she grabs her cat, and she makes the trek to Ashburn House. She goes through the village, and Ashburn House is separate from the village, but she can walk there. It's a bit of a jaunt, but she can get there. So she sets up, she gets her cat unpacked, and soon after, very, very terrifying things start happening. And also she's seeing terrifying things in the house. Like, there are no mirrors. Why are there no mirrors in a house? That doesn't make any sense. There's a message that I think is on the dining room table, scratched in, that don't forget to light the lamp or the candles. I can't remember what it was. But something is outside of this house and wants to get in desperately. And she needs to keep it out. And I was truly just terrified reading this book. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. A nonfiction book. This is terrifying that this is a nonfiction, real life book that scared the hell out of me. I particularly have a fear of home invasion. So of course, when I read I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, this is one woman's obsessive search for the Golden State Killer. When I read this, I had chills. I felt like I was checking the locks on our house so much while reading this. Now, I read this, of course, Michelle McNamara, if you don't know, passed away before this was published. And the book itself was finished by another friend of hers who was also looking into the Golden State Killer. She would essentially spend her evenings trying to track this man down because she was just horrified that he had gone free for years after killing. He killed in the, I think, 70s and 80s, and then he just disappeared. He just stopped killing. And so she was on the hunt for him. So she passed away before it was even published. And then when it was published, I don't even know how much time, maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months after, he was found. And I read this just before he was found. And I'm so glad he was found and that he's in jail, and just, I'm so thrilled. But what these victims went through was traumatic. And yet, Michelle McNamara, the focus on this book is so empowering to the victims, because some of the victims survived and some of them were killed. And she 100% lifted up the voices of these victims and did not glorify this man for 1 second. And I was just, this is the way true crime should be written. This is it. It can be scary because these are scary stories. It can be scary, but you do not need to glorify these horrible men who do these horrible things. And I'm not saying that every serial killer is a man. Most of the time they are. But yeah, I was absolutely terrified reading this book. But also it's so nice when it's also empowering. One of the books that I have on this list that I absolutely love, I can't find on my shelves, which is weird because it is Bird Box, which was for a long time my favorite horror novel that I had ever read, because it is so terrifying. We're in a world, again, a dystopian, kind of apocalyptic, if we're being honest, more apocalyptic than anything else. We're in a world where if you see this very particular thing outside, you go insane and you kill yourself in, much of the time, the most terrifying of ways. And we follow a woman who is pregnant and lives in this society. So you're following her when the outbreak, we're assuming it's an outbreak, first happens, and she's watching people around her killing themselves. And then you follow her some months later when she's found a group and she's safer in this group, and they have found ways to live in this world. They put blindfolds on if they need to go out and get food and what have you. And the idea of living in this world, like, I just don't think I would be one of the survivors. All of those things, like if watching like The Walking Dead or any of those things, I'm like, I'm not gonna survive this. I just wouldn't be one of the survivors. I would be like one of the first ones dead. I have no skills. I just wouldn't do well. Okay, anyway, so that's probably why it scares me even more, because I wouldn't even get to the blindfold place. Okay, anyway, very scary book. And last but not least is a strange book, and this might just be a me thing. This might just be terrifying for me alone. And this is Bright Young Women. I am actually in the middle of reading this when I'm filming. I'll probably have finished it by the time you guys actually see this video. But Bright Young Women, to me, is a feminist retelling of what happened with Ted Bundy and all of the women that he murdered. Now, in this book, Ted Bundy's name never comes up. He is known only as the defendant, which is why I love this, and why I think if you haven't read I'll Be God in the Dark, go and do that. But if you have read this, I think you should read this. It is fiction. You are following two women. One of the women is a sorority girl. She's like the president of a sorority. And that sorority is broken into, and two of the girls in the sorority are brutally murdered, and another two are horribly injured. So you're following her on that night. You follow her every second of that night, and she sees this person is terrifying. And that you also follow another woman across the country who believes that this man who killed all of these sorority girls also killed her dear, dear friend. And they meet, and these two women meet and are trying to bring this man down. And I started reading this one night, or one day actually, and I went to bed that night and I had some sort of dream that it was related to this. And I woke up and I was kind of paralyzed. Has that ever happened to you where you're lying in bed and you're like, I probably should just go and pee? But that's usually why I have scary dreams. I should just go and pee and then I'll feel better. But I couldn't. I was just scared, and I was just thinking through what I would do in the situation. And I had chills in bed. I have never been so scared. But I was, especially because this is based on a true story. This really did happen. Ted Bundy did exist. And yet it's so beautifully written because it's feminist, and he is only known as the defendant, and you do not focus on how gorgeous he is. Actually, she calls people out and saying, he wasn't that smart. He was really lucky. And also, the police were stupid and didn't have the proper precautions to not allow him to escape and all of these things. And like, just because he defended himself, well, you can defend yourself in court. You have the right to do that as a U.S. citizen. And she just calls it all out. And so I love that. It's like a feminist look at this. And yet you cannot dispute how terrifying these things would be for his victims. So, and apparently me while reading that book. So anyway, those are the most terrifying, scary books that I have read personally. Let me know in the comments below if you've read a scary book that like made you not be able to sleep at night, what have you. I would love to know, and maybe I'll put that on a future TBR for myself. I will talk with you guys very soon. Bye.